Hey everyone, really excited to show you another budget build that I made. This one started off with actually one of my old friend's builds. Gave him an upgrade recently, and he was able to give me a good deal on his old motherboard and processor, and I thought it'd be a great baseline to a new build. It originally had 8 gigs of RAM, and I had a 16 gigabyte kit laying around, so I definitely wanted to bring it up to the 16, and then I found a good deal on an i7. I just don't think 4 cores is quite enough to cut it in. This i7 can be had for around $60 to $80 on US eBay. 4 cores, 8 threads at 3.4 gigahertz boosting up to 3.8 is pretty solid, especially for a chip from 2011. Since this is a locked chip, it doesn't really need that fancy of a cooler, but I was able to grab a good deal on this 212 Evo. Going for a little bit more on the premium side of things, so with this and the case that I have, it should run pretty quietly, at least. Building experience was pretty great in the case as well. There's a single 120mm fan in the front and then a single one in the back. Very solid fan configuration, especially with the extra 120 on the 212 Evo. Then I have this CX550M power supply, which is a great unit. It'll be more than enough to power this guy. And it is semi-modular, so I was able to clean up some of the cables even though there's no power supply shroud in this case. I still think I was able to make it look pretty decent towards the end. The hardest decision for this computer was finding the right graphics card. I wanted something with at least 4 gigabytes of VRAM, and I didn't want to spend too much over $120. Right around $100 to $120 is what I was aiming for, and there's quite a few different ways you can go at that price point. I originally wanted to go with the GTX card since they're just a little bit more popular, more brand recognition for someone just browsing Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, but even the GTX 960 4GB can still go for upwards of $100, which I think is a little bit ridiculous. Even the GTX 760 still goes for around $100. Could go for an older R9 290 card, but it's gonna suck up a lot more juice than the 550 watt power supply is gonna be able to handle. The RX cards really vary in price just between the 400 and 500 series, depending if it's a 4 or 8 gigabyte card. The prices are always changing. I think I got myself a reasonable deal on the 480 4 gigabyte, but I really think 8 gigabytes might have been the way to go. We'll take a look at the benchmarks, and you can kind of see for yourself how much the VRAM is being used. For the storage solution, one of the most cost-effective configurations I've found is a 120 gig solid state for Windows, and then just your standard terabyte 7200 RPM 64 meg cache mechanical drive. Pretty satisfied with the thermals here in 3D Mark Time Spy. GPU keeps at a comfortable temperature at around 75 degrees under load, and then as I expected, the CPU stays at a pretty chilly 50 degrees under normal gaming load, and the hottest it gets is right around 60, which will be great for the longevity of it at least. I ran a few benchmarks for a few games really quick just to get an idea of the performance. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, this is at around medium settings. I wanted to get just kind of an average, just power the machine on and try and play a game kind of performance. Solid 60, could probably get a little bit more than that, tweaking the settings just a little bit more. GPU is working as hard as it can. CPU is getting pretty close too, but there isn't a bottleneck there. Definitely a very intensive game. Thermals are still very comfortable. This is at 1080p, and we're not quite at the full 4 gigabytes of VRAM, but we're getting close. As I'm recording this audio, I'm actually just realizing the GTA benchmark is a little bit strange. The GPU is not actually at full capacity right now, but neither is the CPU. I don't know if this is just because of the pre-baked benchmark. I wish I would have done a little bit more investigation here. But regardless, this is right around medium settings. It's getting right around 60 FPS, no problem. We're still getting really close to the 4 gigs of VRAM though. Very consistent frame times for all of these. Also, really good indicator that these games are going to run very nice and smoothly. Rainbow Six Siege ran very comfortably as well. Pretty high for CPU usage, but not enough to cause any bottlenecking. We are getting the closest we've gotten to the 4 gigabytes. I really think 6 would be the minimum for today after doing these benchmarks. 120 FPS, rock solid frame times, still runs very nicely. And yeah, that's it for the build. I am satisfied with how it turned out in the end. It's relatively quiet. It looks pretty sleek. I was able to do pretty reasonable cable management. The only thing that's really not perfect is the graphics card, and I learned a little bit about the performance there. Still able to get pretty respectable frame times and frame rates, and I wouldn't recommend doing any more than 1080p for this card anyway, but 4 gigabytes is definitely the minimum nowadays, I would say, if you want to play modern titles. Getting really close to the edge of that VRAM there. Otherwise, it was super fun to build. Thanks a lot to everybody who watches. I actually have a link tree down in the description where I now have an Instagram and a Facebook page that are linked together, so whichever one you prefer. I'm posting stuff there pretty much like clockwork every 2 days. And hopefully I'll be getting out another video sometime soon. Thanks for watching.